This dude doesn't even play that much Zed, but he locks him in against Faker and somehow solo kills him more than once in lane. So how does he do it? What does this high elo random mid laner do so well that you have to start doing in your games? What's GameLeaper? Oh, the jizz. And who doesn't like watching a nobody stomp a 3-time world champion? Well, that's what we're going to be doing, so by the end of this video, you will know how to crush ranged champions in the mid lane as an assassin. And this is going to be useful for all of you. Even if you play ranged champions, you are going to learn so much from this. So let's jump right into it and talk about this level 1. This Zed is going to throw his shuriken at Faker, and even though he sends it to Mars, none of the minions are low, and getting some little chit damage onto the enemy champion is always good if you're playing an assassin. So it's not like he's missing gold for doing this. But immediately after throwing out his LL shuriken, he retreats, trying to stay outside of Faker's range, and this is because in terms of cooldown, Faker has the advantage, but all of a sudden, this random turns back into Faker, and it's actually beautiful League of Legends. I'm getting excited. Now, the reason he does this is because Faker has pushed so far forward and is now levitating among Zed's minions. So if Faker was to auto-attack in this position, he would take a lot of minion damage, but because Faker also knows what's going on, he still auto-attacks, but he fades away like MJ while doing so. This means he takes less damage from the minions and denies Zed the opportunity of getting in melee range. Now, after this mini trade takes place, Zed starts auto-attacking this minion. But why? Well, this is because he knows the wave is going to push into him, and he wants the wave to be as small as possible, so it's easier for him to farm and potentially trade. Otherwise, you're going to get poked like crazy under your tower. But do you think Faker wants random Zed player to get this 21 gold as easy as that? Of course not. It's a level 1 Zed who poses no threat. So he throws his Q out, and despite missing, Zed has to spend time dodging it and actually misses the last hit. Now, Zed is about to make a big mistake in terms of his movement. Did you spot it? Let's watch it again. So after trying to hit Faker with his Q, and this one went to Jupiter, I think, not just Mars, he turns back into Faker like he did in the first example. But the reason this is a big mistake now is because Zed's minion wave is a lot smaller, and as a result, Faker will end up dealing more damage than he takes. Now, the effect this has is immediate in terms of HP, but also restricts Zed in the future because he got chunked, and now has to resign the lane for the next minute or so. When Faker hits level 2 first, it's a heck of a lot scarier, just because Zed is missing a lot of HP, and this Q he sends out here is also somewhat troll, because when the enemy minion wave is as big as this one and is threatening to crash into your tower, trying to whittle down this wave is always going to be the priority. So using his shuriken to last hit and to thin the wave would have been ideal. Now, when you are in this situation, it is imperative you don't lose any more HP, not just in terms of your own lane, but the closer to death you are, the enemy jungle will also want to sniff, and you might get tower dove. So Zed staying outside of Syndra's Q range here is very important. Now, the wave does crash into Zed's tower, and he knows that if he tries to last hit with auto attacks, Faker is obviously going to have an absolute field day. So what he does is he concentrates more on damaging Faker with both his W and Q rather than actually CSing, and this is a great tactic because the lower you get your opponent, it becomes riskier for them to harass you. And the next time you get your cooldowns back up, or when this Zed hits level 3, his kill threat goes through the roof. Now, the most important skill in any lane is to be able to recognize and count cooldowns. So when Faker uses his Scatter of the Weak on Syndra here, Zed knows that for the next 15 seconds at least, Faker has no defense if he were to jump on his head. But if you look in the bottom left, Zed's W, which is how he would gap close, this is on cooldown, and it's going to come up at a very similar time to Faker's E. So until that point, when his W is off cooldown, his main focus is to avoid as much damage as possible, and he makes it very hard for Faker to hit him because his movement is in a 360-degree circle. Lots of players just run forwards and backwards. Some players might sometimes move left and right as well, but the best in the world move in every direction. This is something you can practice and just see if you actually do it in your games. Now, Zed's W is back off cooldown, but he doesn't throw his shadow out right away. Now, why is that? That's because this cannon minion is going to give him level 3. Look at his XP in the bottom left. So instead of using 2 abilities as part of a combo, he waits a second and then uses all 3 and gets some really nice damage onto Faker. This is a really important trick you can do because you never want to be wasting a cooldown just before a big power spike, especially when level 6 rolls around. Now, in any lane, the more it progresses, the more dynamic it becomes, in terms of levels and items in particular. So because Faker is now level 3, he has more tools to punish Zed with, and more threat. This is why when Zed is on cooldown, he even gives up these minions because he doesn't want to have to take more damage than he has to. The healthier he is, the more deadly he is. The only time he actually runs towards Faker is when he knows Faker is on cooldown. So when Faker Qs these ranged minions, even though Zed doesn't have his W for a few seconds, just moving towards your opponent like this exerts pressure because they don't really have anything to retaliate. So if Faker was to use his W and then E to try stun Zed, Zed can just flash and his W would be back up to assassinate the 3-time. So Faker has to respect it and he holds onto his cooldowns. Players in lower elos are not going to do this and they are going to use their cooldowns when you pressure them, and that is how you can exploit them. Now Zed comes off cooldown again and uses all 3 abilities in harmony, and again deals a good amount of damage to Faker, but he misses a serious kill opportunity here. Even though he blinks back to his W, he backs off despite Faker being on just 300 HP, Zed having flash and ignite, his E being ready, and his Q about to be ready. So there is a very good chance he can kill Faker, but even if he didn't solo kill Mr. Sanghyuk, Faker would be incredibly low and would have to leave the lane anyway, and Zed would then be able to accrue a gold lead. So not all the time does an all-in have to result in a kill. Even here, when Zed has his Q and E off cooldown, he can Q flash E onto Faker and then ignite, and the same thing would happen. Faker might die, or he would be way too low to stay in lane, and Zed would have solo access to the next wave or two. Instead, he doesn't trust his mechanics and has to end up using his flash defensively so Faker doesn't solo kill him. Now, the initiated among you would have noticed that Faker has exhaust, and you might be thinking, isn't it too risky then for Zed to go for those all-ins? No, because they would be impossible to react to even for Faker. Now, shortly after this trade, Zed's energy is replenishing, so he has enough to potentially kill Faker with a WQ combination, and Faker has to flash. This was a real blunder from Faker, but Zed did well to capitalize on Faker's arrogant positioning on 100 HP with little mana. Now, a bunch of champions decide to have a taste of the mid lane action here, and can we get a like on the video for how well this Camille just played that? But you can see here that because Faker has had to recall being on such low HP, Zed can gain golden experience Faker can't get from the minion waves, and he can also deny some in the process by shoving as hard as he can. Now, one trick to do is that as you're recalling, you can place a ward in between these 2 walls, and this is going to detail where and when Faker roams from the mid lane. This is especially useful when you're playing against a champion like a Twisted Fate or a Talon, someone who is always looking to leave and influence other lanes. Now, after buying and running out of base, Zed decides not to go back to the mid lane for 2 reasons here. He is only going to miss 1 or 2 minions because the wave is pushing into him, and this fight in the river is a legit fight. These players are fighting to the death, and when Zed knows they have this level of commitment, he detours and picks up a kill and an assist. Now, he does think about chasing more kills, but realizes at this point, if he was to try catch up to the enemy Varus, he would lose so many minions mid, and it wouldn't be worth it. So he U-turns and catches the crashing mid wave instead. Now, you might notice that Faker is playing very passively here. In the earlier example where Zed was farming under his tower, he was super aggressive, right, and harassing even with auto attacks, so what's the difference? Well, Zed now has more AD, red buff, all of his HP, and all of his cooldowns, so it's a lot riskier for Faker to move forward and punish Zed for last hitting. So he Q and E's, but then runs that far away that he's out of vision, and this is because if he was to stay in range of Zed, without his E, he is dead meat. Now, when Faker returns to the lane, Zed knows that Faker's E is probably still on cooldown, so he goes for a very standard W-E-Q combo and chunks Faker. But again, because he has no abilities left, he backs up to preserve his HP, so the next time he combos, there's a very good chance he can kill Faker. Now, what's also essential to be aware of on this wave, which is wave number 6, is that champions will most likely hit level 6 as well. This is why Faker, even though he's not hitting Zed, is queuing these ranged minions to try catch Zed off guard with an insta level 6 combo. Now, Zed knows this and also knows he still needs to get a few minions to hit level 6 himself, so he stands diagonally opposite Faker, which is the safest position Zed and any of you can position in regards to the enemy champion. And even though he gets hit by Faker eating through this minion, Faker cannot follow up because of that range. Now, if this type of video is something you enjoy, you can find hundreds more of these on our website, GameLeap.com, and our challenger players and coaches are uploading up to 20 videos every single week for our subs, so to get that exclusive access, click on one of the links down below and put pen to paper. Now, Brom and Karthus want to gank Faker here, and Zed gets super unlucky because if you look in the bottom left, he is so close to level 6, but it still takes him 3 range minions to get his death mark. Now, the reason there is no reason to critique this is because he plays it perfectly. He baits Faker into moving up because he is still level 5, blinks to his W when his team converges, but it's just a tiny bit of XP short of guaranteeing a kill. But he redeems that situation because he is about to solo kill Faker, and to be honest, I'm not sure if Zed PayPal'd him 50 after that play, but Faker runs in range of Zed's W combo and dies to ignite with all of his cooldowns at his disposal. Little bit sus that, but Zed does a great job of punishing Faker's positional error, and this is why playing mages into assassins is so difficult. One misstep and you get a grey screen. Now, after shoving this wave and recalling, we're going to watch Zed returning to mid a few levels later, and he is going to solo kill Faker one last time, and this is the final nail in Faker's coffin. And as you nail your mouse to the subscribe button down below, Zed uses his ultimate on this grave, so he doesn't actually have it for Faker, but Faker is very close to being out of mana, and because Zed has his Prowler's Claw already, he knows that his damage output is still high enough to kill Faker if the opportunity presents itself, and it does. Faker ends up headbutting another Zed W combination, and even with exhausting him and ulting him, Faker has barely any damage from his items because he went cooldown boots, tier, and seekers, and Zed only needs to proc electrocute and use his ignite to secure the kill. Because Faker is now so far behind and the game is about to open up, he ends up going 0-7 in this game, and I hope that gave you a detailed insight into how these players at the top level play against each other. Thanks so much for watching this video, and until tomorrow's daily upload, this has been the Jizz.